Hello, my name is Adam Riancho, and welcome to Nice and Blunt. The draft is quickly approaching. The NFL season is just a couple weeks away, and it's time to get as prepared as you can for your draft. For today's video, I've compiled a list of 10 players who I think are a mistake to draft at their current ADPs. This is my do not draft list for 2021. Okay, so in order to compile this list, I've just taken my own personal rankings and compared them to Fantasy Pros ADP. Fantasy Pros uses an aggregate ADP taken from 4 different websites. Those websites are Yahoo, Fantrax, Fantasy Football Calculator, and Sleeper. So it's an average of all of them, and I think it's a pretty reliable tool for what to expect in your actual draft. In order for a player to qualify for this video, they need to be drafted inside the top 100, and their ADP needs to be at least 10 spots away from where I would personally rank them. As always, my rankings reflect half PPR leagues, and without further ado, let's get into it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the players being drafted in the top 3 rounds aren't valuable. However, there's one player who really stands out. That player is none other than Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, I'm not going to pretend like Mahomes isn't my number 1 quarterback overall. That's not what I'm saying by putting him on the do not draft list. I still have him as my number 1 quarterback, but to draft him as 18th overall in a 1 quarterback league too is just an idiotic move, honestly. I understand why you'd want him, but I want good deals. I want the best values in the draft. I don't want to reach on any player, and if you take Patrick Mahomes before pick 35, I think you are reaching and making a mistake. Moving on, I'm just going to go chronologically through the ADPs. So next is Julio Jones, whose ADP is 41st overall at the moment. Look, I like Julio a lot. He's obviously a Hall of Famer, but the reason why I'm worried about him this year is because of the passing volume in Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill threw 9 fewer passes per game than Matt Ryan did, and that amount of fewer opportunities is definitely going to impact Julio's target volume. I do think he is going to have a decent target share, but I think he's barely going to crack 100 targets on the season, and that's if he plays a full 17 games. I still view him as a top 25 wide receiver, so he's definitely valuable. However, there's a lot of names going after him that I think are better picks to take before him. He's also on the back end of his career, and last year he missed 7 games, so I'm not fully confident that he's going to be able to play a full season. He's already missed a lot of time in camp and practice, and while I don't think that that's necessarily going to hold him back, I'm just worried that he's going to have lingering injury issues throughout the season, and it may force him to miss some time. Based on his name value, it's going to be very difficult to bench Julio Jones, and that's why I think it's going to be a bit of a headache to own him, especially if you commit to him as a top 15 wide receiver, not a top 25 wide receiver. Next on the list is another player who I think has Hall of Fame talent, but his ADP is just too high for my taste, and that's Kyle Pitts, the rookie tight end in Atlanta. I definitely believe in Kyle Pitts' talent. He was a can't-miss prospect in the draft. I understand why he was drafted 4th overall. However, to draft him at his current ADP of 47th at the end of the 4th round as tight end 4 is a bet that he breaks both Jeremy Shockey's receiving record as a rookie tight end and also Rob Gronkowski's rookie tight end touchdown record. That is the only way where he returns this value, and it leaves you no room for error. You're not drafting Kyle Pitts at his floor by any means. You're drafting him at his ceiling, and that ceiling is a really, really optimistic projection. It's a bit unfair to put all these expectations on a rookie tight end, regardless of how talented he is. I do think that Kyle Pitts is going to be valuable. I have him as my tight end 5, but to take him at the end of the 4th round is just a big mistake for me. It's too high for my taste. Unfortunately, this list has a lot of players I like, but it's not that I don't like the player, it's that I don't like the ADP. And next on the list is Kareem Hunt. I'm a big fan of Kareem Hunt. I like the Browns. I really like the situation that he's in, and I think he's the most talented backup running back in the NFL. However, there's just quite a few running back 1s in the league who are being drafted behind Kareem Hunt, and I just think it's a safer bet to bet on a player like that who gets more volume. To justify this high draft price of 50th overall, you're kind of assuming that Nick Chubb is going to miss some time, and I just don't think that that's a bet you want to make. I don't think that's even going to happen, honestly. So I have soured a bit on Kareem Hunt in the last couple of weeks. I'm kind of sad about it, to be honest with you. I really like Kareem Hunt, and I like having a Browns running back on my team. I just think he's being drafted too high, so I can't recommend taking him at his current ADP. The 5th round is kind of tricky. Honestly, it has quite a bit of landmines in it at the ADPs, and this next player is also being drafted in the 5th round. It's TJ Hockenson. Look, I understand why TJ is going as tight end 6. That's where I rank him, as my tight end 6. However, the arguments being used to justify this ranking can be applied to other players, like Logan Thomas, for instance. However, their ADPs are drastically different from one another, and TJ is being drafted a full 30 picks before Logan Thomas. Both of them saw over 100 targets last season. However, only one of them seems to be viewed as a very reliable option, and I just think that that doesn't really make any sense to me. Tight ends outside the top 3 are all very touchdown dependent, and I don't really have any confidence that the Detroit Lions are going to be able to score a lot of touchdowns, and to take him in the 5th round is just a really risky bet. I can't endorse it. Next on the list is the last running back I'm going to mention. It's Travis Etienne, rookie for the Jacksonville Jaguars. His ADP is 58th overall at the moment. A couple weeks ago, he would not have made this list. I was definitely on the hype train for Travis Etienne. I mean, he was drafted 25th overall, just one pick behind Najee Harris in the 1st round. However, I don't think that that should be a major factor when you evaluate Travis Etienne's value this season. What's more important to me is whether or not he's going to lead this backfield. And after watching the Jaguars in the preseason, I don't think that he is going to be the lead back on this team. I think James Robinson is going to have a very, very consistent role, especially near the goal line, and that's really going to hinder Travis Etienne's fantasy production. I can't imagine a scenario where Etienne sees more than 50% of the touches in this backfield unless James Robinson gets hurt, and I don't want to bank on that in order for this pick to work out. His ADP is a reflection of his ceiling, not his floor, and that's why it comes with too much risk for me to take personally. I just don't see him as a 5th round pick. Moving on, yet another player I really like, but just hate the situation. It's Kenny Golladay of the New York Giants. His ADP is currently 63rd overall, and I would wait about 2 rounds later to take him. He got a big contract this offseason moving to New York from Detroit, and while I love his talent, I just really don't like the situation. The Giants have a lot of mouths to feed in this passing game, and I just don't trust Daniel Jones to be able to distribute the ball efficiently to each of them. He's being drafted inside the top 25 at wide receiver, and it's really hard for me to rank him inside the top 30, honestly. I think Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, and even Kadarius Toney are all going to see enough targets to make each one of them very frustrating to own. And while I do think Kenny Golladay is the most valuable of the bunch, I just think his week-to-week floor is too unpredictable to rely on. I am definitely passing on Kenny Golladay at his current ADP. I view Odell Beckham Jr. very similarly to Kenny Golladay, and that's why he's the next name on this list. His ADP is 69th overall, and I would wait a full round later to take him. I believe in his talent. I obviously think he's a really talented player. He's definitely going to have 1 or 2 games where he blows up for at least 20 points. And if that happens at the beginning of the year, then it's probably going to look like this is a bad call, but I just don't think it's going to happen more than twice. The passing volume for the Browns is very low. We know that they're a run-first team, and that's just going to make Odell Beckham too touchdown dependent for me to be comfortable inserting him into my lineup on a weekly basis. He's going to be a real big headache to own, and I don't really want to have to make that decision. I think him and Jarvis Landry are going to finish the year with very similar fantasy numbers. However, their ADPs don't reflect that. Jarvis is being drafted a full 35 picks later, so he's much safer and much more valuable in the draft. If I'm only drafting one of them, it's definitely Jarvis, not Odell. Next up is another wide receiver who has once been considered in the top 5 in the past. However, this year, it would be crazy for you to say that that's the case. It's Michael Thomas of the New Orleans Saints. His current ADP is 72nd overall, and I have him way outside the top 100. Where do I even begin with Michael Thomas? First off, he's on the PUP list, so that he's going to miss a minimum of 6 weeks. But also, we don't know what this quarterback situation is, and we have no idea what to expect his role is going to be if Jameis Winston is the quarterback, and even if Taysom Hill is the quarterback. We assume he's going to be the wide receiver 1, but I don't think he's going to get the target volume that he was seeing when Drew Brees was the quarterback, and the accuracy of all those targets is going to take a big tick down. So I don't think his completion percentage is going to be as high as his career mark has been. Michael Thomas is making $20 million per year, and when Sean Payton had to comment on Michael Thomas opting for surgery this offseason, he looked visibly frustrated. I can understand why, but that's not the only reason to be frustrated with Michael Thomas. If you recall last season, the Saints suspended him for a little bit because he punched a teammate in practice. So the vibe surrounding Michael Thomas is just off. Every instinct I have says to completely avoid him in the draft. However, just based on respect, I had to rank him. I have him as my wide receiver 50 just because there's almost no scenario where he makes it that late. But if it happens to you in the draft and you're sitting there and he's available around wide receiver 50 or so, honestly, I'd still probably pass on him. It just feels like a mistake to invest a very valuable roster spot on a player that's going to miss a minimum of 6 games. It could be more, and I don't want to keep him on my bench just waiting for him to come back when I might need that spot for a really good waiver wire pick to stream another player, and I just want to avoid that scenario completely. So I'm not drafting Michael Thomas in just about any scenario. And lastly on this list is JuJu SmithSchuster, another name who in the past has been considered a top 5 wide receiver in the draft, but this year would be crazy to do. His current ADP is 77th overall. I still think he's being overvalued in the ADP. His name value is what's keeping him this high. It's definitely higher than his actual value. And with the emergence of Najee Harris this year, I don't think that the Steelers are going to be as pass heavy as they were last year. What was keeping JuJu afloat was mainly his touchdown numbers, and I think that the Steelers want to commit even more to Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool, even James Washington a little bit, so I'm worried that JuJu's floor takes a big hit. So overall, I'm just not excited, and if it were me, I would not draft JuJu SmithSchuster. If you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.